So let's start though with a case that does not involve DNA testing yet, but a controversial serological analysis. So briefly, in August 1980, Chamberlain's family, Lindy and Michael, were camping with their two children, a 4-year-old son and a 2-month baby daughter, whose name was Azaria, near Uluru, which is a sacred mountain in the Northern Territory, Australia. Very beautiful and unusual place. While at one of the nights, the neighbors who were camping nearby heard Lindy screaming, and then she has reported that her baby daughter has been taken from their tent by a dingo. Now, dingoes are native wild dogs who are found in many places in Australia, and they actually hunt in a pack, and they are known to be dangerous to people in some situations. Dingoes are actually very smart and strong. They are not too big, sort of a similar size to a coyote, but they can easily take down a kangaroo and drag it to their den. Now, the baby was never found, and the police has quickly accused Chamberlain's and especially Linda of killing their own baby daughter. And one of the reasons for that accusation was their religious beliefs. So Chamberlains belonged to what is called Seventh-day Adventists, and there were false allegations that the church, which was actually a cult that killed infants as a part of the bizarre religious ceremony, and there also were people who claimed that Lindy Chamberlain was a witch. Some really weird stories. Anyhow, she was eventually found guilty and spent 3 years in jail. Now, a key piece of evidence, though, that played the central incriminating role in this case was the testimony of a forensic scientist who testified that he found presence of blood in the family car, which he described as those tiny little blood spots all around the car, and claimed that this result was based on the presumptive test for the presence of blood. In addition, that was not only just any blood, but fetal blood, because of the presence of fetal hemoglobin, that protein, remember, that transfers oxygen and CO2 in the red blood cells. Fetal hemoglobin is special because it can be found only in blood of infants below 6 months old. So taken together, finding multiple blood stains of an infant inside family's car, and all the false and bizarre allegations about Chamberlain's religious beliefs as well as Linda's behavior, who was unusually quiet and not very emotional for someone who has just lost her baby, were a hard piece of incriminating evidence and found to be very convincing by the jury. The problem, though, was that the spots from the family car that were presented in court as a definitive positive result for blood, that result was incorrect. The expert has failed to explain that this is just a presumptive test which is prone to false positive and false negative results. One of such false positives are various types of oxidants, such as metals, including iron, nickel, copper, and others. Now, apparently, Chamberlains are from a small town in Northern Territory which is full of copper mines, and their car was full of that dust, which produced that result. Another issue was with the serological blood test for the presence of fetal hemoglobin. This test is also known to produce a high percentage of false positive results. The fetal hemoglobin in the Chamberlain's car was later found to be a substance that is used for sound insulation that was sprayed on during the manufacture of the car. Also back then, it sounded very unusual that a dingo would attack a human, but later on there were hundreds of documented dingo attacks around Australia. Now, all these facts have been demonstrated by forensic experts brought by the defense during the trial, but Linda was released only when a piece of Azaria's cloth soaked with blood was found near a dingo's lair in 1986. The court and the prosecution, however, refused to admit that there was a problem with this trial and tried to present this case as, simply there was not enough evidence to convict Linda beyond a reasonable doubt. And it took almost 30 years until she was finally acquitted by the Supreme Court in 2012. So if you are interested in more details about this case, please check this podcast and other websites. So what have we learned from this case? Well, a number of things. I would say that most important is that the danger of cognitive bias and specifically confirmational bias, which can obviously lead to all these miscarriages of justice, that over reliance on a specific forensic test or method that hasn't been properly validated and not taking into account alternative explanations, such as in this case the false positive result, and also that biases about people from different religions or who behave slightly different to the norm or what we used to, that all can potentially lead to severe miscarriages of justice. Or as Lindy Chamberlain said herself in her speech to young forensic scientists in Australia, when you are faced with a new task, a new case, remember to examine your preconceptions. Test your assumptions and then test them again before making a decision which may affect other people's lives.